Hi everyone, and thanks for everybody who's subscribed to my channel. If you haven't, please subscribe now so you'll be notified when my new videos are posted. And thank you again to everybody who continues to share my videos. It is important to share them to really get more reach to more and more people. And I'm very grateful and for all your kind and very generous support in that regard. Today I want to speak about the horrific murder that took place on the streets of Dublin over the weekend. Now there was a big incident that took place on South Ann Street where a man was viciously stabbed to death following what I could call a running riot around Dublin City. Now this comes in the context of what's happened over the last number of weeks, and even in the most recent week where we saw the horrific knife attacks and stabbings in Stoneybatter in the north side of Dublin. Now, it's absolutely disgraceful what took place on our capital city streets over the weekend, where we had a number of people attending an R&B nightclub and spilled out into the street afterwards, and it became really a running riot around our city streets. Now, if people would know South Ann Street, that is quite close to Dáil Éireann, just off Dawson Street and off the Grafton Street as well, and within a couple of hundred yards of where the politicians sit, and actually quite close to the Mansion House too, which is where the Lord Mayor lives. Now, this is very interesting because last week Dublin City Council rejected a motion that was brought forward in the context of the horrific knife attacks that took place in Stoneybatter last week, and 46 councillors voted against debating this issue. That is an absolute crime in itself. And many of these councillors as well laughed as a number of those councillors who brought forward the motion left the chamber in disgust because that motion wasn't heard. And coincidentally, the Lord Mayor, Emma Blaine, said, shut the door on the way out to those councillors as they were leaving. Now, it shows you the contempt that these political classes have for ordinary people. And in terms of the safety of the citizens of Dublin City, really doesn't come top of their list because it doesn't play into the narrative. And this is important because you've seen the hypocrisy, in particular to the reaction to the horrific murder that took place and of the man that I believe was in an international protection centre out in Ballyogan, a Nigerian man, I believe. Now, what's important with this is the reaction and who started it. What's really important is what created all this crisis in the first place. It's interesting because we have a political class and a political establishment that aren't interested in representing the best interests of ordinary people and more interested in serving their masters in Brussels, their globalist bosses, their bosses of big corporations and billionaires. Rather than serving the interests of ordinary people, they will bend over backwards to pursue their agenda, and they will create the conditions for the crisis and the chaos. And then, what's the answer? People will look to them for more measures to ensure their safety. It's just pure lunacy. And already we've had Jim O'Callaghan, the Justice Minister, now today talking about working with opposition parties, trying to push forward the facial recognition technology and moving forward more technology bills to impinge on people's rights and really bring us towards a totalitarian state. So by crying out for harder policing measures, this is what we get. So the crisis is created, and the crisis is created by the political establishment and their policies, and now they're coming up with a solution, claiming they're benevolent, claiming they care, claiming they're interested in the safety and needs of our citizens. Now this is interesting because this comes from a narrative with the Irish political establishment that we've seen the homeless disaster. We've seen more and more people being forced into homelessness. Last year on the streets of Dublin, 40 people died on the streets of Dublin from homelessness. Now, of course, if they really cared about the best interests of our people, they would have homes. But of course they don't. They're more interested in serving their vulture landlords and their big lobbyists than the interests of ordinary people. And what's interesting as well is that the neglect of the city centre for years and years and years. There's absolutely people living in abject poverty, disgraceful conditions in a lot of council flat complexes quite close by to Grafton Street, but well hidden. Areas around Pearse Street, areas around Sandwich Street, and many more council flat complexes on the south side of the city are in absolutely disgraceful conditions. And of course, they've been neglected by the political classes for years and years. And then also we've had the issues around dereliction in Dublin city centre. We've had swathes of areas of dereliction. We've had over shops where they're completely empty and devoid of any life in the communities. And coincidentally, if you're going around that area of Dawson Street, great for the nightlife of the weekend, but a soulless district for more and more days of the week. And consider, you go around to Merrion Square, empty, vacancy, where people could have homes, you could have livable, safe, enjoyable cities for people to live in, and that's affordable. But no, leave them empty and create the conditions for the chaos. And then on top of that, we've had the immigration chaos, where we've had over €1 billion of public money spent last year in the international protection system. And at the same time, the vast majority of people in the international protection system are from safe countries. Of all the figures of people in the international protection system, nearly 7,000 are from Nigeria. And as well, there's countries like Georgia, Algeria as well on the safe country list as well, which are quite high. Now, this is interesting because, as I said, there's €1 billion is being spent on this industry last year. And at the same time, the government have created the conditions by supporting their big employers, by supporting the big businesses yet again, and the commercial property owners to make huge swathes of profit from the public purse and create the conditions for the destruction of our society in terms of the issues that this is going to create and the breakdown of the social fabric. So all these conditions are created by the political establishment at the behest of their bosses, their employers, their masters in Brussels, rather than the interests of the people here domestically in Ireland. And at the same time, we have the Irish government who have spent huge amounts of public money again. And Michal Martin has been off in Munich at the weekend at a security conference, being stood up by Zelensky at a meeting they were supposed to attend. And now he's heading off to Paris for a European leaders summit, trying to fight back against trying to get peace in Ukraine and look for more war and trying to work towards a militarist union, and plenty of money to spend on this and to drive this narrative about the threat and the danger from overseas when we look at the enemy within. And that's what's important to note when you look at the political establishment. You need a political establishment in Ireland that represents the people. You need people in Ireland that stand up for the interests of ordinary people. But we won't get that with the current incumbents, or even the opposition, who talk out of both sides of their mouth every day of the week and just play lip service to the interests of ordinary people. One measure, laughing at councillors in the council chamber when they ignore a motion that's brought forward in the crime crisis, and out of the other side of their hands, they're looking for more safety in Dublin and the inner city communities. You couldn't make it up. We need to stand up and use our voices ourselves to put the interests of our city and our proud and beautiful country first in terms of what's going on and the destruction of it day by day. And as I said, this will be used to usher in more draconian restrictions on ordinary people, more of a police state, rather than serving community policing with people on the ground, where people get to know each other and building strong, proud communities in around Dublin City and also all across our country as well. But this will come paddy last to the political establishment in Ireland, who are more interested in swelling around the world, going over to offer bowls of shamrock to Donald Trump, than serving the interests of the people here domestically who are suffering and dying because of their policies. Thanks for the support. Please press subscribe to my channel, and I'm very grateful for everybody who continues to share my videos. And again, thank you so much for all the kind words, and please comment on my video as well. Let me know what you think of what's going on. Take care. Bye bye. Slán.